We continue part 7 with chapter 4, the 4th day from Tuesday evening to Wednesday evening. So that would be chapter 38 of the book. At the conclusion of this speech, most probably on the same evening, Tuesday, which was the beginning of the 4th day of the week according to the Jewish reckoning, and while they were going towards Bethany, Jesus said to his friends, while the Bible also has the week start at sunset on Saturday, so it's not just the Jews, and it's not just in that area of tradition either. You know that after 2 days is the feast of the Passover, and the Son of Man is betrayed to be crucified. There could be nothing plainer than that. He should not carry out the Jewish messianic idea. He should disappoint all the worldly hopes of his personal friends. They must give up forever their expectations that he would prove a temporal deliverer and regard him hereafter as a spiritual Messiah. When Jesus and his disciples reached Bethany, they found that an entertainment had been provided for them in the house of Simon the leper. Who he was, we do not know. It is probable that he had the leprosy and had been healed by Jesus, and that he gave this supper in token of his gratitude. Perhaps he was a relative of Lazarus. If not, the two families were intimate, as Lazarus and Martha and Mary were present, and Martha served. After the meal had begun, while Jesus reclined at the table, Mary came in quietly and opened a flask, and noiselessly poured the ointment on the head of her friend. Well, that makes more sense, right? She had watched with loving eyes the agony of his soul, his harassed look as he returned from his daily conflicts in Jerusalem. She naturally desired to make some marked and significant display of her love. On that aching head she poured the nard. There, stretched from the couch, were the swollen, throbbing feet that had been standing in the temple during the day and bringing him across Olivet in the evening. She recollected that they had stood beside her brother's grave. Now, there sat that brother alive, well and eating. Her heart went out in all lovingness. She spent the remainder of the ointment on his feet, then threw the flask away and wrapped the dear limbs in her hair. So silently and unobtrusively had she done this, that it was only when the house was filled with the odor of the ointment that the disciples perceived what had been done, although Jesus, from the first, knew that it was Mary and what she was doing. There was one dark spirit at the feast who was about to do the deed of treason, which was to damn his fame forever. It was Judas Iscariot. Well, there's things about that. What does Iscariot mean? And, well, if Jesus knew, maybe it was, sort of a sign. But anyways, he ventured the first criticism. Why was this waste of ointment made? Why was it not sold and given to the poor? The other disciples concurred in this view, after it had been suggested by the treasurer, Judas, under the specious guise of consideration for the poor. The criticism grew into a murmur round the table. It's also perhaps thought that Judas is a representation of the Jews, but there's other indications that it's connected to a real person. But the reply of Jesus is most striking. "Let her alone," said he. "Why do you trouble her? She has wrought a beautiful work on me. You have the poor with you always, and when you will, you may do them good, but me you have not always. She has done what she could. She came beforehand to anoint my body for the burial. Verily, I say to you, wherever the gospel shall be preached in the whole world, what she has done shall also be spoken of as a memorial of her." Now, just like pilgrims, they're not supposed to have the scented oil and stuff like this applied on their pilgrimage. Some people before, but also if he was to be killed as if he was a criminal, then you would have run into the aspect of, well, nobody was supposed to give him any degree of honor in his death, including a proper burial, which really everybody deserves. Now, do you bury everybody as a believer? No. And do you know, other than the fact that they're upholding their prayers or whatever? No, you don't. But dying as a criminal shouldn't actually refute that idea. This is a remarkable speech. Every way, Jesus was caught in the toils of his enemies. He always knew that there was to be no temporal kingdom with offices and honors and emoluments, and that now death lay near before him. Beyond that death, he saw that his cause was to rise and conquer, that the whole world was to hear the glad tidings of Jesus, and that whenever and wherever that gospel was preached, Mary's graceful tribute should be recited as a memorial of her. It is noticeable as showing the care of Jesus for the graceful when it has no special utility. Jesus took care of the beautiful. He knew that the useful would take care of itself. He showed how much more precious in his sight is the service of the heart than the service of the head, the worship of love than the labor of thought. While Jesus was predicting the downfall of Jerusalem, as he sat on a projection of Mount Olivet, the churchmen inside the city were plotting his destruction. We're not downplaying humanitarianism or outward deeds. It's just the multiplication of what it is through the intentions of divine service in these things is just dwarfs anything with that. But anyways, he had that day humbled them in the sight of the people. He had every day increased their rage more and more, and had constantly escaped, always going out of the city at nightfall. They felt that they must do something promptly and decisively to suppress Jesus. With that view, a large and perhaps confidential assemblage of chief priests and scribes and elders met together in the palace of the high priest, says Matthew. They did not go to the usual place, the council chamber called it Gazeth, which according to the Talmud joined the south side of the temple, and they went to the hall or court of Caiaphas, son-in-law of Annas, a man who had degraded the pontificate by giving it political connections. It is not certain where this palace or hall or court was. An ancient tradition makes it the country house of Caiaphas, the ruins of which still show on the summit of the hill of Evil Counsel. That's a pretty cool sounding name for a place, right? But